Welcome to the first episode of the Real Estate Social Club podcast. I'm your host, Maylai. I'm really excited to bring this vision to life. I really do believe real estate is a sport, a game of strategy and expertise, and we're bringing you the best players with expert knowledge. The podcast really is going to bring a lot of value, full of tips, success stories, market insights, and much more. But today, we're thrilled to have San Antonio powerhouse Robert Alex join us. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome, guys. Appreciate you having me.
So let's dive in. Robert, can you please give us a quick 30-second version of how you got into this crazy world of real estate?
Actually, it was by accident. I'm pretty sure it's a lot of stories similar to mine when it comes to agents like myself. But I actually was trying to go professional in soccer overseas in Europe. And I played in Germany and Romania, my parents' home country, about a year of span time. And then I went in the lower leagues. I didn't reach the highest leagues I've always wanted to go to. Money
Mm-hmm.
starts drying up. And then I had to come back to the States. And I just took a few courses in real estate, actually with my mom. And the rest is history. So I just became an agent and now I'm currently a broker. So that's what I do.
So awesome. No, I appreciate you sharing that information. You mentioned you played soccer professionally. What position were you playing?
I was mostly in the attacking position. I would float around anywhere where the coach wanted me to. I would be like underneath the forward, the smaller of the forwards, midfielder, outside of the outside mid, depending on where the coach wanted me. But anything offensive.
Cool. I have to ask, who's your favorite player?
Well, Messi is currently, but Ronaldo was when I was growing up more. So, but I have a bunch of other ones, but it's a long topic to dive into. So
I hear you. All right, so let's just jump and dive right in.
sure.
What's the biggest misconception you see first-time home buyers in San Antonio have about the current market?
So the misconception I see first-time home buyers have in the current market is thinking they have to put like a huge down payment, like close to 20% down. Obviously, you and I both know, you being in the lending world as a lender and me as an agent, as a realtor, you can go as low as 3.5% down with an FHA loan. So if you're talking just whole numbers, $100,000 home, let's say, 3.5% down is like 3,500 bucks. Obviously, you have some closing costs involved as well, which is where I come in and negotiate on the client's behalf. But when it comes to the misconception, a lot of people feel, I feel like, that is my opinion, at least, that a lot of people think that you're going to need to have a lot of money to purchase a house. And another misconception I see is that people are wanting to wait for the perfect moment, for the perfect market. It's the perfect moment is now. Whenever it's the right time for you, financially speaking. You have your job together, stuff like that. So I would recommend anybody listening that you get situated with you and your spouse, or if you're just a single person, just get your money straight, and then if you're ready, go and pull the trigger. Don't hesitate and reach out to someone like us, me and Eli, and we'll get the job done. So that's what I would share with in regards to that.
I have to definitely agree. That really resonates with me, and I always hear the same type of conversation and that same point of view. I don't have enough money down for down payment. It's that 20% down payment they think is needed, but you're right, it's
Yeah.
not. And it's funny that you say that because I hear that quite often as
If I may interject, I actually remember a long time ago, a few years back, a client was wanting to rent, and I
well.
told him, "Hey, would you be open to speaking with a lender of your choice? You could select a few of my lenders if you want to." And they were actually so adamant about renting, but then having that conversation, they're open to speaking with a lender. And little did they know is they qualified, so they moved into a property by purchasing it rather than just continuing on renting and making another investor rich, right? So that's
Right.
something that I like to share with other first-time home buyers is, yeah, you're probably renting right now, but instead of extending the lease, maybe even like 3 4 months beforehand, before your lease is up, try speaking with the lender, see if your possibility. I always live by this philosophy: the answer is always no until you ask. So you already had a no by not even asking. So if you do ask and you find out where you're financially are in life in regards to like potential purchase of a home, and if you are told no, then now you know for sure. But if you're not, you know, why waste
Mhm.
that opportunity,
Right. No, I love that. I love how that's super insightful and kind of just showing, there's a limiting belief that I find when I meet potential buyers. They already have in their head they can't do it. Right. That's what they think. It's too expensive. They can't do it. So I think it's great that you are guiding and showing opportunity in places that they might not see for themselves. And I think
Right.
that's where, as professionals, you and I, we come in to show that there are ways, there are strategies, and no, I love that. I love how you shared that story.
Sure.
So, kind of going back to San Antonio, we've seen some inventory increase in the past, 3 to 6 months, and prices stabilize. So, what are some of the biggest challenges you've seen in the San Antonio market over the last year?
Well, I've worked with sellers and buyers, so it's not you'll have some agents that only work specifically with only buyers and not
Mm-hmm.
sellers, and vice versa. Agents that only work with sellers and no buyers. I, on the other hand, work with both. I recently just closed in the month of January a listing that we listed in the summer of 2024. It was listed at 285,000, a 4 bed, 2 bath, about 2,000 square feet, and we finally closed it at 255, and some closing costs for the buyer's behalf, even though I was representing the seller. So that's what I'm saying, guys. So if you guys are watching, anybody that's looking to buy, be it in San Antonio or anywhere else in the country, try to feel out the market. I would go after properties that I have a lot of price changes. Whenever you see a price change, that tells me as an agent, if I'm on the buyer's agent side,
Mm-hmm.
that there's motivation on the seller. So in regards to your question, I mean, it is stabilizing. I feel like last year was really tough on a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
both sellers, buyers, and agents like ourselves, right?
Yeah.
But even right now, I have a small listing, 162,500, 2 bed, 1 bath, about 800 square feet, just shy of it. And it's about 40 days on the market. We did have an offer. We accepted it. I forgot. I think it was around 155, so it was not that far off. But the buyer had to back out because of financial obstacles that they encountered. So it happens sometimes. You get under contract meaning offer accepted.
Mm-hmm.
We use a lot of real estate lingo, so you and I know this, right? But the first-time
Yeah.
home buyer or someone who doesn't, experience this type of day-to-day language, under contract means offer accepted. So just sometimes you get the property under contract and then out of contract, depending on various reasons, because of financial obstacles like this one that I've just experienced, or maybe inspections or what have you.
Right, right. No, thank you for that. So, kind of building on that, Robert, as we've seen shifts on the market, one thing I'm also noticing, kind of what you said a little earlier, buyers are really hesitant to kind of jump in, right? They're
Yeah,
they're watching the interest rate, and they're hesitant. They don't want to make moves, right? They want to wait for it to drop further. But as you know, the market is very dynamic, right? So waiting can actually cost them more. So my tip is really for anyone looking to buy is really to stay in close communication with your mortgage professional, learn trends, also reaching out to your real estate agent to kind of know what type of market it is, because with different markets comes different approaches and strategies.
of course. Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's difficult to tell a buyer or a seller what to do if they don't feel like. At the end of the day, I always tell potential clients, they're the CEO, they call the shots. What they say goes, right?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we're not moving in with them. We're there to facilitate and help them get either get their home sold or home bought, right? So, um, at the end of the day, we're just tools in their back pocket to see if they're willing to use us or not. And If they don't want to use us, that's fine by me, you know.
Mhm.
No doesn't mean not no, like right then and there. It also means not yet, you know. So it's
Right.
maybe it's not a good time, but I always recommend them to, pull the trigger because it's in only their best interest to do so because you're living in the now, so you don't want to wait 5, 10 years from now to purchase something when you could do it maybe in the next 6 months and the next year or so, so that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, and to that, you know, it's a big deal, right? It's a big deal in terms of an individual putting themselves out there, right? There's also a lot of shame that I've also seen. People are kind of shy to share their financials, right? Their income, their debt. It's a very intimate
Yeah.
process. And I really, as a mortgage, I'm very gentle in the way that, wherever you are, if you have your goals, we can kind of look at that, but there's no shame in sharing that information, but there's a little vulnerability to do so. Right. And I
Yeah.
acknowledge that. And I myself have gone on that journey. So I like to share that, we take a look and it's okay. We can always build up, we come from a lens of trying to help and advocate for them. So I think building that trust and rapport and making them feel kind of comfortable, kind of gives them the opportunity to be like, maybe I can do this, and
Yeah.
I think that's important also with agent relationship with buyers and sellers, that trust. It's a huge thing.
Absolutely. You just reminded me of my story when I first bought my first house. I actually couldn't qualify by myself, so I had to
Mhm.
co-sign with my dad. So I was only pre-approved for like 50, 60K, and I can only buy a junk with that. So I was able to get my dad on board. And for those of you who are watching or listening, you guys can co-sign. Let's say you're not ready by yourself, like you already did the application, but it doesn't look quite good yet, you can always
Uh-huh.
co-sign with someone who is probably a better credit score or better income, not to like
Mhm.
bash on you, nothing wrong with that. Everybody's at different stages in life. But now I'm living in my second house. I already sold my first home, but if that never happened, I'll probably still been struggling to find a place. Not that I couldn't, do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So um yeah, I mean, there's so many avenues you can try, and that's what we're here for. Anything house related, you talk to the realtor, right? Anything financial related, you talk to the lender, you mainly, right? So
Right.
I'm so glad you said that because that reminded me about that story.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your experience as well.
Yeah.
So here's another thought and question. So, in your experience, what's a key step in the home buying process that many buyers kind of overlook, especially in recent market shifts?
Overlook like what? Like in the price points or financially related,
It could
like
be
lending?
anything really. So I think, the home buying process, it's a little tricky, right? It's involved and
Yeah.
whatnot. But, is there something that you think that a buyer might not do, but that could help them?
I remember during the craziness of COVID, I would write letters
Uh-huh.
on behalf of the buyer to gain that opportunity to get that
Mm,
offer accepted.
mm,
Now it's not so recommended, but I would still include it somehow, like the story of the buyer and their
mhm.
background to relate to potentially the seller in case it becomes a multiple offer situation. So if there's no competition, my job is to try to look at what the market is showing in that particular neighborhood and see what the values are going for so that way you guys don't overpay if they're asking a certain X amount.
Yeah.
Sometimes I was able to save on the list price and
Mhm.
also some savings on the closing cost. So it just varies per client, So I don't really have like a set like formula for each person, It just
Yeah,
varies
I think
per client,
it's a different for each
Yeah,
scenario and person. And
yeah.
no, I love that though. I think that also sharing that type of letter and story also brings opportunity and connection, a visualization of perhaps as a seller to review some of these offers and to see, some people hold their property very close to them. right? So
Oh
these
yeah.
sellers are letting go of their properties, but there's an intimate relationship with their property because they have a lot of memories. So I think, your strategy is good because it also shows who these people are, and they might choose because of that letter, that intent of sharing who these people are. It might actually have they might select your buyers versus two others that did not prepare a letter of some sort.
Right, and I'm actually supposed to meet with another buyer this week. I think maybe
Hmm.
tomorrow or Thursday of this week. We're shooting this on Tuesday, March 18th. But there's this particular neighborhood and a particular school districts this buyer wants to be in. It's a subdivision called Stone Oak, which is a very, very nice, pristine area in San Antonio. A lot of hills, a lot of beautiful views in the city of San Antonio. However, the properties that they're finding under 500,000, which is our pre-approved for, they're not finding something that they like, and they're very limited to the demographics they want to be in. So what I've offered is I'm gonna meet with them maybe tomorrow or Thursday, maybe at a coffee shop. Take my a laptop with me and show them the MLS, the multiple listing service, and see which properties I can actually look on the map and find their criteria. They're looking for a 4 bed to 5 bedroom house with at least 1 bedroom downstairs. But I'm gonna like scour the neighborhood and actually send letters to those areas that we target. I've closed some off-market deals like that before, where I
Sweet.
send out mailers. So what I would do is I would talk to the buyer and say, "Hey, which areas do you want to go in?" And they would to specify a specific neighborhood. So I would just send out mailers with like short verbiage, "Hey,
Hmm.
to the seller or the owner, hey, would you consider like a 1 day listing?" 1 day listing sounds easy, right? It sounds like you're going on Netflix and just browsing around to the next movie you want to watch. Why? Right? Because
Right.
if I come off as like, "Hey, sign a contract with me and get the home on the market," like I don't know how apt they would be to contact me. But if I do verbiage like, "Hey, would you consider a 1 day listing?" and put it like in a beige card or green or blue or red or whatever, just something that's out of the ordinary from your daily mail or junk mail, they're gonna probably open that one first rather than the rest of the junk mail. You know what I mean? So that's how I won sometimes off market deals for buyers. So if anybody's watching, if you have a realtor in another state, ask them if they would do that for you. And maybe you guys can split the cost or have them do the cost because I take that cost on myself, because if you're hiring me, of course I'm going to put in the work for you, right? So that's what I'm going to do with these guys this week. See, we're going to jot down every address, and then I'm going to use that, like put it like in an Excel spreadsheet or something, and I'm going to send it to like a printing company and I already have everything set, and then mail it and see which one bites. And then they get an off market deal
Yeah.
without no competition. So
Right. And that's another pro too, right?
yeah.
That's another excellent, you've got no competition. What does that mean? No competition to that buyer.
The properties that are already on the market is your competition if you're the
Right.
buyer, even if you're a seller, because you're competing against other listings that are for sale. So if one private property drives their price down, maybe you're going to be forced to chase the market and drive the price down too as a seller. But it goes the same way for the buyers too. So that's why when I say off market, you have no competition. You could literally deal directly with the owner, not necessarily you per se, but us, the agents, talk it out, hash it out, and
Mhm,
see where we come to an agreement with all the paperwork out of the way. And then if
mhm.
everything makes sense and it sounds right, then there you go. You're on your way to get a home, you know?
So amazing. No, I think that's great. That's a very good marketing strategy and going above and beyond. So I agree. If you have a, realtor you're working with, it's a different technique to utilize because these buyers, they sometimes want specific areas, it sounds like, right? Certain
Yeah.
neighborhoods. And if nothing's on the market, there's nothing to buy, right? Because it's
Yeah.
not on MLS. It's not,
Yeah.
listed. So yeah, I think that's a great technique.
I And to add to that, I'd be even audacious enough to, because I also have a YouTube channel. I would literally make like a private video, not for the whole entire world to see it, but just a private
Mhm.
video specifically to that neighborhood. And then after I upload it privately on YouTube, I'll create a QR code and then stamp that on into the letter. And then that way they could just scan the code, the owner, whoever receives that in the mail, and say, "Oh, this guy's legit. Here's his contact information." And then they contact me because I have the buyer, which is you, whoever it is,
Uh-huh.
wanting to purchase, and say, "Hey, I literally have, I can even do a video with the buyers in the background
Uh-huh.
with me in the video and say,
Right?
hey, now it's your turn to talk. Hey, this is what we're looking for, and this is our agent." That idea just came to me, right? So there's so many ways you can put as many fishing lines in the water, so to speak, as possible.
And that's what I love about you, Robert. I love that you have this openness and the innovative way of doing business. I also think similarly. So I love also being having a QR code, and you're bringing a different level to the game, right? And I appreciate that because it
Thank
gets me
you.
excited when I'm hearing that. I'm like, oh, that's something I would totally do. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I would totally do that,
yeah,
especially, yeah, because connection is important and being innovative. And,
yeah.
as much as I like, print does work, right?
Oh, it
Marketing
does.
strategy, but we are in this digital age, and we need to adapt our business to what we do. So it's great. I'm already in the
Yeah,
background. I'm already actually creating a QR code. Last night I was doing
that's
some
so cool.
work and I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do and place this. It's great.
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah. We got to
So
utilize it.
yeah. So before we go any further, I just wanted to touch briefly on the importance of kind of like understanding credit score. A lot of these first time home buyers, they are focusing on is the interest rate. Like everything is like where we're at, especially with COVID, we were in the twos, we're in the threes,
Yeah,
that's hard. It's been a hard psychologically to kind of get some of these people to understand that was a very unique time.
yeah,
And, right now we're kind of floating in the sixes. The other week I saw, a little under six. But an important thing is really how much their credit impacts the interest rate, right? So when people are searching for, interest rates, I think they've also got to do some work on their end to get the
yeah.
best type of opportunity and interest rate for them. So a little improvement of checking your credit, watching, paying down certain credit cards. And, these small changes can make a big difference when they do decide to purchase.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, so what's a common mistake you see first time buyers make in this market that ends up costing them a lot of money or time?
Well, I don't really see a lot of mistakes on my current first time home buyers because I take the time to educate them to
Mm,
not make those mistakes. But
mm-hmm.
what I can elaborate on is one client in particular wanted to buy a truck during a transaction. So that's not good. So the best way I could put it in simpler terms is to be financially boring. Don't go out and buy cars during a transaction because that can hinder, or it doesn't matter if it's a car or like a boat or something that you can buy on credit that can hinder your home purchase, So
You bet.
you
You
probably know
bet.
this too.
So with that kind of stuff drives me bananas. I really
Yeah,
try in the beginning when I do speak with buyers, and I consistently say the same thing, right? Just what you're saying, be financially boring. Don't
yeah,
co-sign. I'm glad you're so nice wanting to kind of co-sign for a family member or whatnot, or buy a car. Don't do that. And I say it in the
yeah,
beginning, the middle, the end. Like I do it throughout the whole process because there's only so much professionals like you and I can do. But I think
yeah,
that constant reminder helps them remember of like, don't
yeah,
do this, right?
yeah,
Yeah. No, good point.
yeah. I agree.
So what are some of specific trends that you're seeing in the San Antonio area that first time homebuyers should be aware of?
I do see a lot of development happening in certain pockets of the city.
Hmm.
I literally am about to have a closing this Friday on a property that's listed at 205,000. It's a three-bed, one bath, but just under 1,000 square feet. Really nicely done.
Okay.
And to each their own, right? So everybody has different preferences. I always like to have fun with buyers and sellers, but buyers in particular. Like I see myself like an actor, like in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Each deal is never gonna be the same cast. I feel like every deal has its own movie storyline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I sometimes I like to joke around with clients. I'm like, hey, think of me as your waiter. What's your criteria? Oh, three bed, two bath coming right up. Like here, right? I'm serving you up, right? But I just like to I take it very lighthearted. I like to
Mm-hmm.
have fun with my clients. I'm not like high pressure salesman. I'm very like laid back. I always get these spam calls. I'm sure you do too, and everybody who's
Mm-hmm.
listening or watching. So I don't like to do that to others. So why would I want to? Actually, I don't like that to be happening to me. So why would I want that to happen to you? So that's why I always come from a low pressure position or place. But in regards to trend, I mean, I see I see people like gravitating towards downtown and the younger generation. They want to have a lower maintenance types of properties. For one, you probably saw on my social media this past week. I like I like to work on stuff. I just made a chicken coop,
I saw
so
that.
everybody does what they want. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. It's up to them. It's to each their own, right?
Right.
So
And it's
we we
matching
we
their
help you
lifestyle.
navigate. Yeah, we help you
Right.
navigate wherever you want. So that's why it's so important to us to hear what you have to say, what do you envision in your life, in your mind, and that way we can help you navigate where you want to be in the city, obviously, and then the financial side of things, where you come in, we help you get there. So we're hand in hand, a team.
Definitely. I'd have to agree. Kind of segue to this also is, when first time home buyers are kind of searching and looking for properties, sometimes I see that they start looking before they get pre approved or pre qualified.
Yeah,
This is something I see so often. And they
yeah,
start to fall in love with the idea of, that condo, in downtown, that hip loft, or, house in the burbs, right? And then you're just like, did you start? And like, no. I was like, oh, okay. I hate doing that because I don't want to crush anyone's, dreams, right? So it's super important to get pre-approved, and we as mortgage professionals, we go through a review of your financial documents, giving you a stronger negotiation position. And you'll also understand like what your buying power is. So before
exactly.
you
Yeah,
shop, always get pre-approval, and your realtor can, based off of that, they can go, off to the races, right? They know
right.
exactly what budget, and you as the home buyer can direct them, right? You
Yeah.
are telling essentially what areas you're interested in.
Yeah, and to add to your point, I completely agree. My favorite go-to line to when I deal with, potential prospects like that is, I always tell them, let's use the internet rather than gas. You know, instead of you driving across town, even and that's the mistake and trend I see too. They drive across town and they want to see a certain properties, which I don't mind showing, but at the same time, you're wasting your time. I'm wasting my time if we don't have like a pre-approval letter, because no seller or owner is going to take you seriously, even if you wanted to place an offer, if you don't have a pre-approval letter set in place. And you and I both know that pre-approval letter is that buying power to
Mhm.
help you make that next step and move forward. So that's the trend I see. Actually, the closing that I just spoke about earlier that I'm having this
Huh?
Friday, they actually ditched another agent because they were too high pressure and also unavailable when I was the exact opposite of that agent, and I'm very laid back. They liked my style. Not all agents are created equal. Even realtors and
Right.
lenders. So I try to come from a place where I want to serve. Like
Mhm.
even in the Bible says, "He who you want to be the greatest, you need to serve." Basically, right? That's what Jesus said to his disciples in the Bible. So I try to come from that position. Like
Mhm.
if you look at the pattern of how Jesus taught in the scriptures, he freely gave his time, he freely taught, he freely healed people, and guess what? The crowds came. So if you come from a place of value, is what I try to emulate, a place where
Mhm.
you care and you want to serve.
Mhm.
People are gonna gravitate towards you. And I was fortunate to serve these guys, you know, so I'm grateful that I came in contact with them, and they're about to get into something brand new, like literally up to date to 2025 standards property. So I'm super happy for them. They're super excited, young couple. I couldn't
Oh.
be happier. So, you know, that's where I'm glad you brought that up. So that's why what I wanted to share.
No, it's a great moment. It is a great
Yeah.
moment. And like you mentioned, all realtors, they have their different styles. You talked about how they ditch their agent. Tell me about that. That commitment. Also, I think when buyers and, having to sign contracts with realtors, it can be a little heavy. It could be a little
Yeah.
much, right? Meaning like, well, if I do this, am I locked in, right? What does this
Yeah,
contract
that's
say, right? So is
another
it hard for a buyer, that is not happy with their agent? What
well,
is it hard for them to just walk away?
the thing is, I don't know what they agreed to with the previous agent. For me, I know with the NAR new rules that was
Mhm,
passed like later last year,
mhm,
that you have to, you know, sign a buyer's representation agreement and all that stuff. To this day, I still don't like. I know I'm supposed to, but for me, like, even if you do sign it, like, let's be real, you can still back out, you know, as a buyer. You're like, hey, I don't. I feel like we're, you know, at conflict. We have friction. Let's, you know, part ways. You can still do that. You know, I don't know if you guys, whoever's listening or watching, if you guys have like certain agreements that are in place that you need to meet those. But for me, whoever decides to work with me, for me, it's like kind of like a first date. You know, you want to get to feel the person out. You know, and if it's not a right fit, you know, I'll refer you to my best competitor.
yeah.
I never want to come to a place like you're getting married to me on the spot is what it sounds like when you're showing these type of paperwork to the
Mhm,
potential clients you're working with, like potential buyers
mhm,
and sellers, you know. So
mhm.
I know maybe there are other agents that are listening probably to this podcast or watching this like, oh my god, I can't believe he does that. Well, that's how I do it, and you know, it's been successful. You know, I don't like to force people to work with me. And why would I want to work with someone who is forced, anyways? That relationship is
Right.
not going to go great, anyways, during the entire process. So I'd
Right.
rather you go to another Karen agent or whoever you want to deal with, you know?
Mhm,
So that's
mhm.
just my style, and that's how I approach things.
No, I love it. I love it. And
Yeah.
I love how you're being authentic to who you are and knowing your style, right? I think
Yeah.
that's fantastic. So, what is maybe a final piece of advice for a first-time home buyer in San Antonio market?
Get in touch with me and may lie.
Right? Right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a great one. How what YouTube channel? We're gonna put all the information
Sure.
below in our videos, but how do people find you aside from that?
Yeah, so you guys can find me on YouTube. You can type in Robert Alexi, my last name Alexe. It's basically Alex with the E at the end, or you can type in living in San Antonio, Texas. I literally have the name of the channel that living in San Antonio, Texas, because it's literally a keyword search that people always type in the thing. So might as well have it and be always searchable. So I have like a purple banner. Let me see if I could pull it
Uh-huh.
up on my phone so that way you guys, whoever's watching, can see it. And then when you guys find it, obviously the link will be in the description, but it looks something like this, like
You
that.
are.
Yeah, so I
I
have
I love
like,
that picture and I love turtlenecks. So when I
yeah,
saw that
thank you.
photo, I was like,
Yeah, so it should look something like this, guys. So living in San Antonio, Texas, and then you can find me. And I'm also on Instagram as well, Rob underscore Alexi. My Facebook got suspended from a hacker, so I'm trying to figure that out, you know. But
no.
it's stupid, whatever. But anyways, I'm pretty active a lot on Instagram, so if you guys want to find me on Instagram, you can. But also on YouTube, I have a bunch of my contact information there, like Zoom links, phone call, email, all that stuff. If you guys want to reach out, you can.
Cool. Definitely, definitely. So I have a couple of last things as
Sure.
we kind of tie everything up together. Tell me, can real estate make you rich?
It can. It can. It definitely can. Like I'll be honest with you, I'll be super transparent. My first house, I
Mhm.
bought it. It was interesting. It was on a foreclosure on the market. Um, I bought it for 119,000, and I put in like 25K into it. and I sold it for about 230 to 500, and I made about 105 or 110,000 from my
And how
first house.
long? How long of a time frame did you?
Well, I bought it in the summer of 2019. I got married that year. I think I bought the house in May of 2019, finished it. I got married in August, so the house was completed before August. And I finally sold my first house in January of 2021. So in less than 2 years. So I was able to make over 100 grand on some change just on my first house. And I bought my second house. That's what's so cool about real estate, because at first, remember that story I told you, I could barely get a pre-approved by myself, and I used my
Huh?
dad. And thank God for my dad. I don't know how people who are watching or listening, I don't know how their relationships are with their parents. Maybe you have a great relationship, maybe don't, or maybe an uncle, aunts. Try someone who's close to see if you can do that. And I'm saying that you can, it can happen to you too. So that's what it literally did, a snowball effect. I was
Mhm.
able to sell my first house, walk into my second house, bought it for 300K during the craziness of COVID. It was actually listed at 289. I didn't win it first time. Actually, I was runner up, and luckily the first place buyer backed out. Crazy,
Uh-huh.
crazy story, but that's what I'm saying. Now I appraised my house about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and it's now worth 415. Obviously,
Wow.
if I were to sell it at uh, even though I bought it at 300K, I owe like, I don't know, 260s, 270s. If I sell it at 415K, you can imagine the difference. And if I
Right.
wait even more, a few years, I could maybe make over 200 grand. So you
That's
can get
wild.
rich. You can get rich with real estate if you park it in the right places. Like if you like house hack and do like buy a duplex and rent out one unit and get into and live in the other and let the tenant pay for it. You can do it that way and start that way. It just depends which type of real estate you want to tackle. You can do a lot. You just gotta do a lot of research. Don't believe everybody out there. Do your own research. Hire a realtor like myself or anybody else in any other state, whoever's listening. Make sure you do your own research. But get an agent, someone like myself or someone else, and get a lender like Maylai, or someone similar that is willing to have your best interest out there, is what I recommend.
That those two things actually resonated with me when you said do your own research. When individuals do their own research, I think it's very very vital and very important to look at the source. Look at where that data is coming from, because there, as you know, the online, there's so much information, and where are those informations coming from, even on social media, right? Who are these people that are, talking about, real estate or what have you? Make sure that they're licensed, they know what they're talking about, right? Like they have to, as a buyer or seller, just to make sure that that source is accurate and where it's coming
Yeah.
from.
And also, let me add to that too, like just one more thing. There are certain agents out there that you can also tell, like based on your intuition, that they're for you, and they're not like a
Mm,
pushy salesman. Also follow that, gut instinct, and even though, like for example, there's some, I don't know everything, and there's certain topics that even during a transaction that I'll come up with something new, like I've never encountered, and that doesn't
right.
necessarily mean I'm incompetent as an agent, but I'll make sure I'll find out for you.
Mhm.
So just because another agent that whoever's listening and you're working with in another state doesn't know something right away, don't be so quick to like kick them out. If they have that good intuition and good relationship with that agent, give
Mhm.
them another shot, give them another chance, and I'm sure they'll do their part as their agent for you to get the information that you need. And so we're all human beings at the end of the day, but our job is
Right.
to, at the end of the day, you as a buyer, you as a seller, make sure you do your research too, so that way you are well informed as well. So that's what I would recommend.
No, I love that. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
for
And
sure.
final question. So I'll be doing this probably for all future podcasts. I know you're in real estate. You're a badass professional in San Antonio. Now, if you weren't working in real estate, and if you didn't have to hit a certain number to pay for, to take care of your family and whatnot, how would you choose spending your time? Even if it's a career, or how would you spend that time?
If in regards to a career, I was actually curious about the insurance adjuster world. I heard that there's good money to be made in that too. I've never actually been in it. I was just dabbling. I was kind of in the research phase and kind of got off of it. I was just
Mhm.
really curious, maybe do something on that on the side because what in my mind I thought that it could go hand in hand with being me as a realtor. I could meet with people, property owners, and then if they're looking to sell their house, boom, I have a transaction ready to go, in the near
Right.
future. So I was dabbling into that as far as but maybe another potential career, not a career change, but like a career addition, I would say. But I love spending time with my family. I love spending time with my community at the church I go to. I think I probably told you this before. If not, I love to serve at my church,
Mhm.
play the trumpet, play the piano. So I serve as much as possible. We do a lot of sporting events at our church. We just had a ping pong tournament, got fourth
Oh,
place in
wow.
it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
saw you
so
also do pickleball too.
yeah, pickleball. Yeah, I won the last two pickleball tournaments at our church, first place. I won
Wow.
with my brother-in-law and another friend of mine from Houston, which my brother-in-law couldn't make. But yeah, I just love to live life, have fun, and honor God by loving my neighbor as myself, right? So
No,
that's
I
that's the
love
whole goal.
that. I love that,
Yeah,
Robert. Thank
yeah,
you so much for being on
for sure.
the first podcast. And I look forward to continuing our friendship and
Of course.
partnership. So thank you so much for your time and your value.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right.
Bye.